Hello and welcome. In this workshop, we're going to dive deep into Joe Bowler's work to tackle a challenge that, let's be honest, we all face in the classroom. How do we get our students to stop dreading math and maybe, just maybe, start enjoying it? Let's get ready to talk about the elephant in the classroom. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to name that big, unspoken problem in math education. Then, we'll figure out what's going wrong in so many classrooms, and after that, we'll look at a new vision for what math could be. And finally, the best part, we'll give you a practical toolkit to really empower your students for the future.
Let's start with a belief that is so common, it was literally programmed into a doll. Yeah, back in 1992, Talking Barbie actually said, "Math class is tough." Now, they pulled it pretty fast after parents complained, but that feeling, it never really went away, did it? This idea that math is just for a few smart people, that's the baggage every single student carries into our classrooms.
And that brings us right to our main idea, the elephant in the room. It's that huge, awkward, unacknowledged problem of math anxiety. It's the fear, the fixed mindsets, just standing there in the corner of the classroom, shaping how our students see themselves. So in this first part, we're not going to ignore it anymore. We're going to look it right in the eye.
So where does all this anxiety even come from? Well, to figure that out, let's move on and really diagnose the root causes. We're going to take a hard look at some of those common classroom practices that, even with the best intentions, often end up creating the very problem we're trying to fix.
The research really breaks this down into three big culprits. First, you've got this passive, rule-following kind of learning, where kids just memorize steps without knowing why. Second, and this is a big one, the damage of ability grouping, which labels kids early on and basically traps them. And third, the bizarre world of Mathsland. Those weird word problems with 57 watermelons that teach kids to just turn off their common sense.
There's this incredible long-term study that just shows this perfectly. They followed students at two schools. One was Amber Hill, very traditional, textbook-driven. The other was Phoenix Park, which used this project-based, mixed ability approach. And as you can see, they were polar opposites in how they taught math.
So, what happened 8 years later? The results are, well, they're staggering. Look at this chart. The students from Phoenix Park, the project-based school, showed way more upward mobility in their careers. This is stone-cold proof that the way we teach math has profound, lifelong consequences for our students.
And this quote from an Amber Hill student, it just says everything, doesn't it? The math they learned was so disconnected from anything real that it was basically useless. They just forgot it all. And that's the tragedy of an approach that values memorizing rules over real understanding. It just leaves kids feeling like math has nothing to do with their actual lives.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what on earth is the solution? In this next section, we're going to paint a much more hopeful picture. We're going to build a vision for what real math can look like by checking out classrooms where students aren't just passing, they're actually thriving.
Just listen to how this student talks about math. It's not a list of rules, it's an interpretive language. A subject where you have to justify your thinking, where there are multiple ways to get an answer, where you ask why. This is a student from a school that completely changed the game, and this is the incredible mindset that came out of it.
So how did they pull it off? Well, their curriculum wasn't just a long checklist of skills. It was built around big, central ideas. Kids were always asked to show their thinking in different ways, with pictures, words, symbols. And the whole culture of the classroom valued reasoning over just being fast. And critically, they got rid of ability grouping, sending the powerful message that every single student was capable.
Okay, this brings us to what I think is the most important part of this whole workshop, your new toolkit. We're done with just theory. We're going to look at practical, powerful strategies that you can take and start using in your own classroom, like tomorrow.
The very first tool in the kit is a huge mental shift, assessment for learning. This means we stop thinking of assessment as a final grade, the end of the road, and start using it as an ongoing tool. The whole point is to make learning visible, so students know exactly where they are, where they're headed, and what steps they need to take to get there.
And here is a fantastic, simple way to put this into practice. It's called 2 stars and a wish. Students look at a classmate's work. They find 2 things that were done well, those are the stars. And then they offer 1 concrete suggestion for how to improve it. That's the wish. It completely transforms feedback from something scary into a helpful, collaborative process.
And please, don't underestimate how powerful this is. The research shows that doing assessment for learning well is one of the single most effective ways to raise student achievement. We're talking an impact so huge,
It could launch a country from the middle of the international rankings right into the top 5. This stuff really, really works.
Okay, our second tool, the power of discussion. Getting students talking about math isn't just a nice-to-have, it is a core learning strategy. Think about it. When a student has to explain their thinking out loud, they are literally forced to reconstruct that idea in their own mind. It shifts the entire goal from just getting an answer to actually making sense of the math.
So these tools are amazing, but they serve a much bigger purpose. In our final section, we're going to connect it all back to the big why. Because this isn't just about getting better grades in math class. This is about empowering the problem solvers of tomorrow, which is why some people are even calling mathematical literacy the new civil right.
Ultimately, our goal has to be so much bigger than just teaching kids how to do calculations. When we let our students grapple with messy, open-ended problems, they're not just learning about fractions. They are building persistence, they're developing creativity, they're building the flexible mindset they will absolutely need for a future we can't even imagine yet. The great mathematician George Polya really said it best. Our job is not to be a drill sergeant, just hammering home procedures. Our true role is to be a challenger of curiosity. By giving them interesting problems, we give our students the greatest gift of all, a taste for thinking for themselves.
And so, we'll end with this one final question, a challenge for all of us. Forget about math class is tough. What if your classroom was the one place where students didn't just learn math, but they actually learned to love it? Thank you for joining this workshop.